Chi Creation, the Tree of Life, Part 2. So, when we think about the heart-brain network, all the cymatic patterns which is created by the sunlight which goes through the water, and then how the plants recreate that on the land. Although the water's getting it from the heavens, and so it's like the pattern were already there, and so the water finds that pattern, and then it gives the information to the plants. And then because like everything's connected to that heart-brain network, it's like, in one sense it seems like it's easier to be connected to it if you're in the forest, you know. But there's also the aspect of like being in the ocean and stuff. But just being out in the air anyway, especially in sunshine, but even without it, it's kind of like we're in that field. It's kind of like all that area. It's connected to everything. Every realm is connected to it, wherever we are in that kind of sense. And so this is part of it. That's part of that heart-brain network. It's the consciousness of spirit itself in that way. So, actually, it looks like sunlight. So it looks like heat or whatever in that kind of sense. Not that I think it's fire or all that kind of thing. That's like the spiritual energy of spirit, it's coming from other side, I imagine. So it's like the light from the other realm which comes into this one. So yeah, that energy, that life force energy, so it's not burning and destroying, it's life force in that kind of way. That is the spiritual energy, so like when you get your downloads, this is how it comes through. It comes through this in that kind of way. And then eventually to one of the realms. So like your psychic ability, your ability to remote view, your ability to astral project, read tarot, all those kind of things. It's like tarot's like, it's a really good tool for like developing your psychic ability. You've got to use your intuition. You've got to be able to read the energy and all these kind of things. So getting used to reading energy, that's a really good way of developing your psychic ability, because that's what you are in that terms of energy. So so when you do practice any psychic ability, that is tapping into that heart-brain network of spirit. When I practiced spirituality years ago, when I was a teenager, you had all this intuition, this quite negative intuition towards the government. Like you can't trust them and all these kind of things and stuff like. And look where we are now. It's quite obviously you can't trust them. So like that's spirit showing you truth. The more you develop your psychic ability, the more truth you get. And so this is what you're tapping into. So it's like imperceivable to us. But that's the kingdom of light which exists. You say all your downloads, all your life force energy, all your inspiration. cloudy or whatever and stuff. But again, that's because it's from a distance. It looks cloudy. You zoom in, and then it looks like flowers. I'll have a different picture for that. And so, like how it's been misinterpreted, how scientists have misinterpreted space. Well, we'll get to that for a later episode, actually. There's a lot that we can go on. But these are quite cool. I look ghostly in that kind of sense. So it's that imperceivable light. It's the life force energy. So when you get that light that comes off crystals, remember that episode we were looking at the Kirlian photography, and it showed you the crystals. There were two episodes. There was one where I went through all the Kirlian photography. There was another one where I showed the crystals as well, and it looked like lightning coming off it. A bit like this. All these shards of energy, like emanating from a crystal. So it's showing you that the crystal's got that life force energy, the same code of what spirit is expressing. So again, I don't believe that crystals are evil or dark or anything in that nature. I see them as sacred. You got the sacred geometry, all that kind of stuff. But to visualize this on that grander scale, you know what I mean? Like it's, like it holds realms amongst it all and stuff. To show how vast it is. That's a bit blurry. It will have looked good right small. Maybe. It's a bit too small. You got your heart shape. So that one. But it also looks like a heart as well. And so when we consider the chakra and then the realm, are the realms of consciousness. And so we see it that way. So you see the tree limbs, all that kind of stuff, like the blood vessels, all that kind of thing. But it also looks like the vast galaxies, when the galaxies are strung together, like that space imagery. Where they zoom out and it's like, it just looks like tissue matter rather than space as such. But again, that's from that internal view. Like, if you were inside and you were taking a picture outwards and all you can see is basically that then you're likely to assume that continues forever. Whereas like this is showing you like, the whole picture in that kind of way. There's a lot of things I wanted to mention actually. Like the background radiation. Does that describe it to make it look like a sphere? Like the roundness of space, say. In one sense, because of like, that'd be the largest bubble within our bubbles of consciousness. And so it's like we've got our realm, and then you've got all the realms that are in a bubble as well, in that kind of way and stuff like. But there's a couple of things. One, they're looking into the past when they do it, and so if they're looking into the past, it's likely to be a different shape now anyway. I think it'd be more of this kind of shape. And there's so many different examples. I kind of think like, like there's probably a landscape. I think I mentioned it last episode, like the plant realm. So it's like you've got like the, we're not going to get disturbed, and There's not going to be giant people around cutting them down and you know what I mean and such. So it's just like, just plants. So if we can grow in harmony, and then we've got the abundance of life within there, and that's where we live, in one of those or whichever. And then there's an abundance of these as well. So I like that. But we also might only be able to be limited to seeing to the edge of known space in that kind of sense, or our pocket in this. I see those. These are also aspects of things. Um, like the like mud fossils. He talks about that giant dragon and that giant fish and all that kind of stuff. So, in one aspect, the giant trees in this sense, and in the Kingdom of Light, then it could add some sort of credibility to it in that kind of way. In one sense, because if Earth's going through its ascension, and we're in a dark age of spirituality, the ascension might take us out of that dark age, and then the Kingdom of Light might be available to see for everybody. Oh, we send that one. I say it looks like light in that kind of way, and also the hollowness in it. This isn't proper lit up. But it makes it look more sacred in that way. I like the astral planes. It's like dots going through it. So there's a lot of stuff to discuss in terms of like the energy flowing through. So like solar storms or whatever you call it, you know, uh, space in wind in space, or I don't know. There's all sorts of things that kind of claim about space and that lot. I've got some pictures later for later episodes which we can like uh, show examples of it and stuff. It's like the tubes. And so, like the spider women created the realm. You can see like this pattern. It looks spider-like. They also look cobweb-like. So in terms of like any relevance to that, which the Hopi speak of. There's a lot of episodes. a lot of pictures. Uh, so will be a few parts to this episode. Oh, and this is interesting as well. You see how it looks like a comet, also like the Horsehead Nebula and such. You know, like you got a few nebulas, and it looks like they're reaching up in that kind of way and leaving that trail and stuff. But they also look frozen in time, and so you know, obviously it don't look like a comet completely because you can see it connects to there and such. But when you got this space with all the light coming through as well, so it looks like a tunnel, and you sometimes get that in light space pictures. It looks like a tunnel, but also if we consider that whilst that looks like a tunnel, this is the imperceivable light. This is what we can't see in these conditions. So let's see all the light. It's got a blue glow to it. You can see the streaking sunlight. And so we're all within these flowers in that kind of way. That's a good picture, but it's a bit grainy. I've got a few more of these pictures. It might be later, I'm not sure. You can see these edges here. So it looks like we've got as a specially designed Goldilocks zone. So planets can't crash into each other. You know? Planets. Realms, sorry. So each realm is attached to that flower in that kind of way. And it's got its Fibonacci ratio, that golden ratio. So everything's going to be connected in that kind of way. And then it makes it so there's no accidents in a sense. That one's a bit better. And so it looks like a turtle shell. So if you have a sunlight coming through, like when we see on turtle shell, that's like the water. So you've got the water patterns, the cymatic patterns, and you can see the sunlight shining through it. That's where we've got the realm, each realm being its own sun in that kind of sense. So they look brighter. You can see the sun inside them. So you got a similar thing going off here, but it's not as the same as such. Like here, like if it's round, like frog spawn, and then when you put all frog spawns clustered together, the round parts become flat. So it's taking the same, that's where the pressure is, in that kind of sense. So in the same sense of, like, that's what's going on in space, or the heavens. It's a neat thing about these series. And you got your heart shape for one of them. And also they look really good, like the brightness and then all the stars around it and such. So, like the eye or the mouth, it's got its horizontal line for your flat plane. So you got your torus field. And how the eye and mouth are also related to the torus field in that way and such. And also the Death Star. So we've mentioned it a few times in those Love and Light episodes. We're looking at Jupiter and other such things. There's more to come on it in that kind of way. It's kind of cool for peacock kind of colours. So So you get that line which comes through. Like the colours of it. Like each one's got its own pocket. Green for Heart Chakra. And so he's showing you all them different colours in that kind of way as well. So it's not just fiery explosion colours and such. Which I do think it does have at some point. It does heat up and it does melt all the, it must be sand, and then that's how you get your domes. Part of the creation process. I like the colours of it and stuff. It looks better than like NASA pictures and stuff. And it's more revealing as well. And quite often, like the NASA pictures aren't even real anyway, are they? It's different. You get telescope pictures. I'm more inclined to believe stuff like that. But NASA, you know, it goes hand in hand with lying and deception and stuff, so. So, also, you can see like the shape of the creature, its legs coming out, or the rib cage, your sternum. So, like the anatomy, which comes from the macro in that kind of way. Butterflies. The shadow of a dome. Oops. This again, your peacock colours. They're also a bit of Hindu light colours. Let's be blurry. Have a light inside there. See the sun, the black hole, and then the bubble of consciousness. A chakra. It's like depth, like stars, and you've got like a circle in its centre, and maybe it's the star or eight in its centre, and that's the bubble around it or such. It's only faint, but you can see something like that. But it gives all that perspective to it, you know, that distance and such. And the brightness. See, you see, it opens and closes. Like we mentioned, it's like a mouth in that kind of sense, or an eye and such. Oh, that's like the black dome. Um, Black from outside. There's some really good pictures. You see, it splits. It throws energy up and it throws energy down. So, like that potential that there's a plane of existence there, and there's also a plane of existence underneath it. I know it's like describing people to be upside down, but in terms of like how gravity works in that kind of sense, and all the energy is going to fall back down, and down would be that way for underneath, and from above down would obviously come back down in that way. But I'm out of time, so I'll leave it at that, and get on with the next one. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all later. Next one. Cheers.